Hey, greetings everyone, and welcome to episode 45 of Lines on the Page. I am your host, Thomas Price. Now, for those of you who have never watched Lines on the Page, this is technically a drawing art live stream of sorts. However, with it being the end of the year, and this also being the last episode of this year, figured, episode 45, let's make it a little bit special. Let's talk about my top 10 comics of 2023. Now, before I get into that, we're going to be doing some really quick housekeeping stuff. If you want to know where Haven Comics is, we are located at 1871 Slaughter Road, Suite F in Madison, Alabama. And if you happen to like this show or any other show that we do, please remember to like and subscribe. Every like, subscribe, comment, share, all that stuff, it does help us out immensely. We're not just saying it just to say it. What ends up happening is that the more you interact within these live streams, the more that other people are going to see it and also want to join in and see everything that's going on as well. And if you want to figure out where you can find me on social media, you can just go through my link tree. Or if you happen to be on social media of any kind, all you have to do is type in at tpriceartworks. It's right here. Just type that into your search bar on social media. 9 times out of 10, you will find me on your chosen and or favorite social media app of choice. So, 2023, it's been a really interesting year regarding comics. And I'm talking about comics in a much grander terminology versus what either Josh and or Alan might be using it for. So I am looking at not just the single issue comic book that you can pick up anywhere within a local comic book store, in a bookstore that just happens to sell single issue comics. I'm not sure if even any of those still exist, but for all intents and purposes, we're looking at single issue comics that have come out this year. We're looking at trade paperbacks. We're looking at graphic novels. We're looking at manga. We're looking at French comics. We're going all over the world. And some of these are obviously readily available here at Haven Comics. And there are some that if you are interested in wanting to get them, you could definitely get them off of Amazon or Barnes & Noble or any other place you could possibly think of. So I had some criteria as far as what to do for my top 10. Now, like I said, it's both U.S. and international stuff, but I had to make sure that all of it is readily accessible, that any person that if they wanted to try to pick up a copy of it, that they could. So as long as the particular comic and or series or reprinted collection has come out before yesterday, but has been printed after January 1st of 2000. So we're working with about 23 years worth of stuff, but it has to be series that I have read for the very first time this year. So that is the stipulation there. And there are 4 different comics that are technically not ones that have come out this year, but they're ones that I have read for the very first time this year. And there's also some new stuff that has come out this year as well. And we're going to be looking at not really so much the story or the writers, but definitely the artists involved. And I do have a couple of pictures of panels regarding that. And trust me, it is extremely hard to find JPEGs that I can upload. And especially since some of them are comics that would be past the PG-13 rating. So it's very hard. There are some rated R ones, mainly just the violence of it. So I'm trying to make sure I can try to find specific pages that are PG related. But other questions like, why should you want to read these books? Why should you want to pick it up? Are they available? Where you can get them? So that being said, we're going to crack on. Now, we're going to go starting at number 10, and then we will end up at number 1. And after we get done with the top 10, we're going to be going into a second section of this video, which is basically some stuff that is happening within the comic industry and how that just happens to be a mirror image to something that was predicted back in 1996. And also some stuff that I just wanted to clue you guys in regarding 2024. So all that being said, looks like we got some people in the comments section. James, what is up? How you doing? Hope you're doing well. I hope you have a really good Christmas or holiday season for that matter. All right, so at number 10, this one came out of the woodwork. I was not expecting this one at all. And when I heard people, or specifically when it was being posted and talked about, I didn't see any interior art for it. It was always the cover, and that cover being The Hunger in the Dusk. G. Willow Wilson has been posting about this comic that she had put out through IDW this year. As you can obviously guess from the cover, it is a Swords and Sorcery type comic book. You can obviously see humans, you can see orcs, which, ironically enough, that is the main focus of this. Basically, the humans and the orcs are having to band together to go against a much bigger threat. And what I love about this comic is the fact of, at least with Wilson's writing, is that she actually made the orcs extremely intelligent, which is the complete polar opposite of what you would see in other franchises, such as Warhammer, Lord of the Rings, / The Hobbit, Dungeons and Dragons, technically Warcraft. James says he is doing all right this evening. Buying a cup of tea. Cup of teas are good. If I was a tea person. I am a coffee person. I like my bean juice. All right. So I wanted to show you guys a page that the artist, Chris Wildgoose, it's a very fancy-esque last name. But anyways, I wanted to show a panel, not really so much panel, full page, I should say. And this is something that he excels at. There is a lot of character development and drama. And if you look here, the very top, you see two characters talking to each other. One of them is passing a horn filled with a beverage to the other character. And you see that interaction going on between the two characters. And one of the things that he has really excelled at is just the character interaction part. And there are a lot of moments where there is some dialogue heavy stuff. Of course, there's plenty of action. But I really wanted to focus on that character interaction stuff. And the thing that kind of gets lost sometimes whenever people are putting together comics is that they think, oh, Marvel, DC, it's got to be superheroes. Everyone's got to punch it out in every issue. And that's not always the case. There are Marvel and DC comics. They're very few and far between, but they are like dialogue heavy that involve character interaction. If you want a list of them that you could want to spot and find, please message me at any given time. I will try to help you out and point you in the right direction of some stuff that you can find. But The Hunger in the Dusk is definitely fitting at my number 10 spot. And I have thoroughly enjoyed it. Right now, it is up to issue 4. You can definitely get a copy of that at Haven Comics or your local LCS, wherever you just happen to be stationed at. Now, moving on to number 9. Now, this is a manga. Oddly enough, this is a manga that was actually originally printed in the 70s, but it did not get an English translation until the 90s, and then it has received a full-on omnibus reprinting of sorts. I have known about its existence. I've seen panels here and there, pages here and there, not translated. So I've known about its existence. And it is Lone Wolf and Cub. Now, as you can obviously tell from the cover arts, that is Frank Miller's art of Lone Wolf and Cub, even though the actual artist, who is Koseki Kojima, is the actual artist of the story. Now, I chose Lone Wolf and Cub for two different reasons. One, without Lone Wolf and Cub, Frank Miller would not have had the inspiration to create his work called Ronin, which came out, I believe, in the late 80s, early 90s. Now, the story in and of itself, like a lot of Kazuo Koike's storylines, they're always going to be very violent. They're always going to be filled with adventure. I would say very much in a long form, blockbuster-esque type writing. The one writer that I know that he has paired off with several times throughout his career is one of my favorite artists from Japan, which is Ryuichi Ikegami. However, Koseki Kojima has a very different style from Ikegami. It's very brush heavy, and his action scenes are very, I don't want to say hyper fixated, but there's just a lot of motion. Some of it is super fluid, very fast paced, and it's definitely one of those things where you kind of have to sit through the pages to figure out everything that's going on. So here's a page that I found that is actually one of the more PG pages of this, but actually you can see with the panel work, it's very well choreographed. So much in a sense that it feels like a movie. And the fact that Lone Wolf and Cub has not only influenced Frank Miller, but has also influenced Quentin Tarantino, which has used not just Lone Wolf and Cub, but also Lady Snowblood as his inspiration for his hit movie Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2. And the other interesting thing is that this particular comic, as well as a lot of other manga, has also influenced two other people that are on my top 10 list, which we will get to those people later. Is there little to no dialogue in Lone Wolf and Cub? So it's weird. So with Lone Wolf and Cub, there isn't much dialogue between the father and the son, because the son is obviously a toddler. He can't really have any actual conversations other than, toddler speak, basically. However, the father does tend to have conversations, sometimes to provide, I guess, his cover, basically. Whenever he's having to do basically all these assassination hits, he kind of has to work this, I would say, in an espionage sort of way. Now, there is something that I do want to mention about reading Lone Wolf and Cub. It is not for little kids. Let's just clear that up. It's not for little kids. So if you have the concept of thinking that all comics, all sequential art is for little kids, just bleep that out. So it's not for little kids. I would say, in the sense of the scope of manga, as far as it being I don't really want to call it historical fiction, even though it is set within a specific period of Japanese history. It can be looked at as like their version of a Western. A lot of the samurai stories in movies that came out during the 50s, 60s, and 70s were often akin to the mirror image of the Italian Western, or spaghetti Western, I should say. So there is that overlapping kind of feel going on. But there is dialogue, and you do have a lot of stuff to read. And I will say, the first omnibus is literally this thick. So you're dealing with several hundred pages worth of just story. And so I wanted to pick up some classic manga that I hadn't read this year, and Lone Wolf and Cub was at the top of the list. Like I said, it was one that I've known about. I've seen panels untranslated here and there throughout, the 25 years that I've known about this. And this year I was finally able to sit down and read it. So, number 10, Hunger in the Dusk. Number 9, Lone Wolf and Cub. Number 8, super excited for this when I heard about it dropping, or issue 0 dropping during Free Comic Book Day this year. And it was one that ended up selling out across the board. And of course, it's kind of hard to sell out a free comic, but it was just hard to find copies of it whenever people had heard about it being dropped during Free Comic Book Day. And that is Conan the Barbarian. Now, this is the Dan Panosian cover. I'm a sucker for Dan Panosian, but he is not the artist of this. It's actually Rob Delatorre. Jim Zub, the writer, has been writing fantasy and sort of sorcery comics for a very long time. Most notably, his longest running fantasy series has actually been Dungeons and Dragons within the last decade. Now, he's also done some stuff for Marvel with Champions and Avengers and some other stuff here and there. And he's also done a separate fantasy comic called Skull Kickers that came out through, it was either IDW or Image, maybe Udon. I don't remember. But I do know the artist for Skull Kickers, Edwin Huang, is actually still today is an artist for Udon Entertainment. But I absolutely love this new series of Conan the Barbarian. And part of it is because it reminds me of the giant magazine-size Savage Sword of Conan. It's definitely pulling back to that era of the 70s and 80s when the comic was at its zenith. And of course, this is when you start getting guys, not only so much Barry Windsor Smith, but specifically John Buscema. Now, the interesting thing is that when you look at Delatorre's artwork, he is very inspired by John Buscema in this. And this floored me because at first, when I picked up issue 0 during Free Comic Day, I thought it was a reprint until I saw that no. Rob Delatorre has basically been pushing his chops a bit and is definitely going for the John Buscema feel. And what's great about all of this is that one of the things that kind of gets overlooked is moments where Buscema is able to pull back in a way. And I'm going to specifically point out the panel at the bottom right, or sorry, bottom left. And he's able to pull away very little to just no background whatsoever. It's just focused on the character, the dialogue, and maybe the shadow of where they just happen to be standing. This is something that doesn't get talked about a lot in comics. There is always this, I guess, an ongoing thing within comics that you have to have backgrounds in every single panel, and that's not always the case. If the focus needs to be on the characters, then focus on the characters. Case in point, the panel to the right of that. But moments where you're able to sit and see the characters without any background that is just completely taking away from the characters and how they're positioning themselves from the dialogue, it works. And that's something that I've always loved about the Buscema era of Conan the Barbarian. And we're seeing this here with Delatorre and Jim Zub. And so super, super, super happy about the series and where it's going. Now, I will say this. Right now, it is 4 issues in. Issue 5 will not have Rob Delatorre. It will be a different artist, and I did have a conversation with Jim Zub because I was curious to see how many issues that Delatorre is going to be doing. He will be back after, I think it's going to be issue 9, I believe. So issues 5 through 8 will be a completely different artist, and Delatorre will be back. So if you want to get any of these issues, please let us know at Haven Comics, and we will definitely hook you up. Now, so we've got Hunger to Dusk. We have Lone Wolf and Cub, Conan the Barbarian. Now, I am a sucker for Tom King. I really enjoy his writing. He knows how to deal with not just the human interaction, but also the human condition. He likes creating character drama, especially within larger than life characters. And I would have picked Human Target. However, Human Target actually came out last year. Now, could split hairs, but the thing is that I was reading Human Target last year, and it didn't end until the beginning of this year. But it's actually another series of his that I've absolutely enjoyed this year, and that is the new Wonder Woman. If you ask me who my favorite character within DC Universe is, it is Wonder Woman. It used to not ever be. And it wasn't until I saw Terry Dotson's art in Wonder Woman on a news rack in a Kroger's that it caught my eye. I was just like, Wonder Woman's yoked. And so I look at it, and one of the things that really kind of bummed me out is the fact that during this time period of like the 90s into 2000s, Adam Hughes did, I have lost count of how many covers of Wonder Woman during that time period of the 90s into 2000s. He did a lot. His depiction of Wonder Woman is definitely one that I've always thought this is what she should look like. And Terry Dodson, even though he did not just covers but also interiors for Wonder Woman, and of course the writing also helps because Gail Simone did several issues of that with Terry Dodson as well as Joel Thompson. They were absolutely fantastic to this day, and I was lucky enough last year to get Terry Dodson to sign on copies. But when I heard that Tom King was going to be doing Wonder Woman, I was just like, I wonder what's going to happen. And that's not supposed to be a pun or anything like that. He chose Daniel's, I'm going to butcher his last name, Daniel Seperi, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. Seperi, I know, has done a couple different comics with DC, but I never actually read any of his back catalog stuff. I'm actually kind of glad that he didn't, he being Tom King, did not pick someone like Mikhail Yanin, because I'm not a fan of his work. I know a lot of people love his work. It's just there's something about it that seems a little bit too fake. Even his traditional work, there's just something about it that just seems very, copy and paste about it. Samperi, however, is following the blueprints of Hughes and Dawson and making just a strong Diana. And I absolutely love that he actually did that. So I'm going to share an interesting panel or two. So it starts off, and I want to say this is issue 3 of this that's come out this year. And so you got Diana walking into this government building, and you've got the SWAT team. And this isn't the first time in this series that she has used her tiara as a weapon. So she's basically using it like a boomerang. Once the door opens, blink, and then it's just bouncing off of everyone. She's totally bored. Finally steps out after the chaos has ended. This is the kind of comedy that I absolutely love about Tom King. And one of the things that I absolutely do love about this is that Samperi understood the assignment. Now, I will say that issue 1 is very dialogue heavy. You do have some really great, awesome fight scenes, especially in the last half, where you get to see the 2 villains that Diana is going to have a constant confrontation with throughout the series. But Samperi definitely knows how to make Diana interesting, and not just the fight scenes, but also in the scenes where she is and where there's like dual timelines happening at the same time. How she's able to deal not just with the external conflict, but also the internal conflict with the things that are happening within the story. And I've absolutely enjoyed Samperi's work. I would say he's definitely up there with Bruno Redondo and Wilfred Torres as far as some of my favorite guys that are doing stuff with DC Comics right now. All right, the next one up is actually another Big 2 comic, but not the one you might be thinking of. It is Ultimate Invasion. I'm a sucker for Brian Hitch's Ultimate Run, or that's technically called The Ultimates, but it's actually Ultimate Avengers if you really think about it. I have been following Brian Hitch since The Authority, and I've loved the just big cinematic approach that he takes to these characters. And he took the same kind of blueprints that worked with The Authority, with Warren Ellis. And whenever he hooked up with Mark Millar to do The Ultimates, it was absolutely fantastic. Now, Jonathan Hickman is back to doing the Ultimate Universe, and Ultimate Invasion is only 4 issues long, and it's just amazing. It's really hard for me to find a good enough picture for me to use, and there's actually, weirdly enough, not a lot of pages out there on Google, and even if you did find a page, it's like super tiny. So I was able to find this one. One of the hallmarks for Hitch's, I guess, super cinematic, sort of thing is not really so much the fact of how many people they can get on a page, case in point, the cover, but it's the fact that he does not shy away from drawing buildings. He does not shy away from drawing technology of any kind. And this is something that I've absolutely enjoyed about seeing his stuff. And he pushes the envelope further and further into his career. He did it with Superman. He did it with Batman. He's done it with the Ultimate Universe. He has done it with the new stuff that's going to be coming out through Ghost Machine, which is called Redcoats. I'm actually really curious about that. But Brian Hitch is definitely one of my... I wouldn't say he's necessarily in my top 5 favorite artists as far as just Big Two comics, but he's definitely... he teeters every now and then. There's been a couple of times where some of his stuff has come off looking a little bit dodgy, and I'm only saying that because of just the deadlines that the Big Two have been pushing on him to do all these covers and stuff. So, but he keeps himself busy, and everything that he does turn out has been fantastic. So, Ultimate Invasion, it's been writing really well in that number 6 spot. Now, I did mention Brian Hitch. So apparently, and I didn't realize this, before he did The Authority, he actually did do a couple of issues of Stormwatch during the late 90s. Now, this year, and I have talked about this at length with Alan and a couple of other people, one of the things I want to do this year, which will lead into the number 5 spot, is that I wanted to do a deep dive into the 90s Image back catalog. Not so much the very beginnings of it, because that's readily accessible. Everyone knows about it. Unfortunately, the only one that I really could not stomach was anything that involved Rob Liefeld. And that's just because it's just an absolute nightmare, and it feels like I put a cheese grater to my eyeballs just having to read any of this work. Now, that being said, and out of the way, I chose a specific interesting period of Image Comics, and that really starts about 1995-96, when things start to change. And this is when the founding members take a step back. They're really working in management type roles. I want to state that Mark Silvestri had just left Image Comics in that time period. And then you've got 2 different people that take up his spots, which are drawing-wise, which is David Finch and Michael Turner. And then to take over the Wildcat spot, you have Travis Charest, who I've talked about at length in several different episodes as of late. And you also have guys like Matt Boom and Brandon Pearson that have also popped in. And then we get into a person that I have never even heard of, who is Tom Rainey, which leads me into number 5. Stormwatch. This is the collection that's actually been put out through DC. I actually do own the individual graphic novels, which technically collected throughout stuff. It's actually done in 2 volumes that have been put out through DC. When the Wildstorm stuff got shifted over into the DC catalog. But Tom Rainey is, it took me a while for me to get used to his artwork, and the more I read, the more I absolutely enjoyed it. Ellis really knew how to drive a long form mystery into this Watchmen-esque type group called Stormwatch. And it's been a really, really fun read. And I'm actually going through my 3rd reread of the series right now. And it just shows how much I've absolutely enjoyed seeing the panels. And I wanted to show 3 different panels I found. Rainey's work is interesting because it's not the typical image stuff. It's very cartoony, but it has a level of detail in the work. And I want to say both of these were from the same issue with the character Jenny Sparks, who is a mainstay character in The Authority. And I would argue to say that if it wasn't for Tom Rainey doing some of the stuff that he is doing in this time period, you probably wouldn't get I would say if the stuff didn't sell as well as it did, you probably would not have had the success of guys like Humberto Ramos. Or sorry, Humberto Ramos. I was thinking of a completely different person. But I've absolutely enjoyed all the panels and stuff he did. There's been a couple of times where you can definitely tell where he was pushed with the deadline, and which the stuff that was happening in Image Comics during that time period, there was a lot of shifting of hands. There was a lot of introductory with different artists. I want to say that Rainey was, if I remember correctly, he was working on the Forgotten Realms D&D comic with DC before he got hired on to do Stormwatch to take over from, I believe it was Trevor Scott, who was doing the interiors for Stormwatch. And at that time period, Stormwatch just really wasn't selling well. And it would be argued to say that the artwork in the original series was a little bit too Jim Lee-esque. And this is an interesting period, as I said before, because you start introducing a lot of new artists and a lot of new writers who have had a lot of acclaimed success because they knew what they were doing and they can make something work. And then you had a bunch of new artists that were coming in that were inspired by the particular people that they were working in their studios, but they also had their own way of going about things. So with Rainey, you definitely start to see more of a clean, cartoony style that lent itself really well later on to his career whenever he started doing X-Men. You start to see it with Travis Charest when he starts bringing in his French comic influence of Mobius into his work. You start seeing a split Silvestri style between guys such as David Finch and also Michael Turner. But I would argue to say that Michael Turner kind of pushed the Silvestri thing a little bit further, whereas David Finch kind of went his own way about it. And I believe, if I remember correctly, both Finch and Travis Charest were in the same office space for about a good 3 or 4 years. So Finch was also being influenced by some of the stuff that Travis was putting out in the same time period. Anyways, tangent aside, the number 5 is the Stormwatch Omnibus. Now, Rainey does not complete the entire series. He ends up getting picked up to do a couple of other series in the Image Wildstorm catalog, such as Deviates. Which makes sense because Humberto Ramos did the beginnings of Deviates, and then he went on to do Crimson out there and a few other different stuff before he ends up doing Spider-Man. So Tom Rainey taking over felt like a pretty good progression. So the other two artists that ended up taking over Stormwatch at its completion were it was either Oscar Jimenez or Phil Jimenez. I think it was Oscar Jimenez. He takes over, and then after Oscar leaves, Brian Hitch comes in, and through that leads itself into, with some of the same characters within Stormwatch, it leads into what we know today as the Authority. Now, number 4. This is an interesting one. I have always wanted to read the Tom Strong Compendium. It's not because it's my name, but I'm a sucker to sit down and read anything that Alan Moore has been putting out. And I missed out on all this stuff when it was coming out at that time period. But when I heard that DC was basically releasing an entire omnibus of Tom Strong, I leapt at it. And this was a really fun read during the summertime. Chris Sprouse is the artist of this. Now, as you can obviously tell with the cover, that's obviously Alex Ross. But Alan Moore basically created a sub-company through Image called America's Best Comics, which all of that stuff ended up getting picked up by DC when Jim Lee kind of merged over into DC. So there were a few other artists within the Tom Strong era. Even though that Chris Sprouse was the main guy, you had Arthur Adams jump in, you had Kevin McGuire jump in, you had Dave Gibbons had jumped in for a couple of issues, and there was another artist as well. But Chris Sprouse's line work is super clean. And I would argue to say that he was definitely influenced by Kevin McGuire. And I also believe that both of these guys worked on Legions of Superheroes before they got asked to do anything through Image Comics. But if you want a really fun adventure series that can be argued to say that is a pulp comic of sorts, I highly recommend Tom Strong. Now, I will say this compendium is quite thick. So you're looking at several hundred pages worth of material to read. But even though it is kind of a long-form comic of sorts, it's also a bunch of standalone stories, even though there is, an obvious issue 1, which are the beginnings of Tom Strong and how he became the person that he is, listed as the first science hero, not a superhero, but science hero, and his family and all the adventures that they go on. You could say that it's, equal parts Fantastic Four and little bits of Lost in Space, a little bit of Doc Savage here, maybe even the Phantom. There's a bunch of characters that they end up running across that are kind of inspired by Golden Age superheroes of sorts. Absolutely fantastic. Cannot recommend it enough. Yes, that is definitely it. Well, I mean, the character Tom Strong is meant to look like this, kind of, I don't really want to say a Superman-ish type character, although he is very larger than life. He is very, the conditions in terms of his, growing up and becoming this larger than life hero definitely has this really weird, Golden Age type superhero story arc, basically. But to have someone like Alan Moore, the guy who creates stuff like Watchmen, creates stuff like V for Vendetta, creates stuff like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is also technically Pulp Fiction as well. But it's just interesting to see, his super serious, type cerebral comics, and then here we are with Tom Strong, which is just straight up good fun, and it's fantastic. I can't speak enough good things about it. All right, so now we're moving down to number 3. In this is a comic that took about 20 years worth of story building to reach to this point, but there's no other way to do it but to pick out one of the A-lister new guns in the industry. Uh, but the comic in question is Big Game, part of Millar's Millarverse, and it focuses on the supervillains of his universe of sorts. And it starts off with it starts off in 1986, where the father of the main character of Wanted has a league of supervillains of sorts, and they're about to take over the world. And of course, um, what they end up happening is erasing the concept of heroes and villains from the entire of humanity. I forgot exactly how they did it, but I'm pretty sure it had to do more so with magic than it did with science. But while the events of everything else happens within the Millerverse, and it really starts off with characters such as Kick-Ass, such as storyline of Wanted, Huck, the Chrononauts, and a few others. You start seeing superheroes and supervillains starting to come back into existence after about a 20-year dry spell, and which leads up into Wesley, who is the main character on Wanted. He is now the head assassin guy. He decides he wants to start his own new League of Supervillains of sorts, and he hires Nemesis, which, if you've never read Nemesis, it's definitely not for little kids. But he hires him, and they're basically killing off heroes left and right. And the first 4 issues is just like you don't know who's going to get on the other end of the barrel, basically, while this goes on. And of course, Pepe Larraz, and I'm just going to show this because this is from issue 5. That right there, just the heroes coming back through time, through a separate timeline to basically circumvent everything that's happening. It's so awesome. You've got the Chrononauts, you've got Hit Girl, you've got Nightclub, you've got the Ambassadors, you've got Eggsy from Kingsman. Did I say Chrononauts? I don't remember. You've got a couple of the characters from Jupiter's Legacy. You've got several of the heroes within that double splash page right then and there. And then it's just the battles. It's just larger than life. If you don't know who Pepe Larraz is, highly, highly, highly recommend trying to find the stuff that he did in Avengers. I want to say that series came out around maybe 20. Trying to remember correctly. I know that he did Rage of Voltron with Jerome Opeña, who's also a fantastic artist. I hope to delve into 7-2 Attorney next year. But Pepe is just this guy who, it's hard to say that he has any limits. It really does. He understands the assignment, and he just cranks it to 11, basically. It's mind-blowing what he has done just within Marvel Comics. And so if I remember correctly, this is his first independent stuff that he's done. It's just beautiful. Now, granted, it feels like a giant blockbuster stuff. It's something that you would expect Brian Hitch to do. So for those of you who picked up the Ultimates for the very first time and read it back in the early 2000s, reading Big Game is exactly like that. And it's mind-blowing. It's so good. It is not for little kids, by the way. There are some comics within Miller's Millerverse, like Empress, for example, that I could confidently say that, yes, your middle school kid can definitely read that and absolutely enjoy it. But Big Game is definitely not for little kids. There's a lot of language. There's a lot of heavy violence. But it definitely has that ginormous cinematic type of approach. It is, in essence, I would say the Infinity War in-game-ish kind of feel of the Millerverse, if you will. All right, so that was number 3. Now, number 2, I have read both the first 2 graphic novels of this. And this is also my first foray into French comics. So to finally be able to pick up the English translated stuff after being told several times that I need to read this is really interesting. And that is Black Sad. Now, Black Sad, like I said, it is a French comic. It's written by Juan Diaz-Canales, and it is drawn by, I'm going to butcher his last name, Guarnido, I think that's how you pronounce it. But Black Sad is basically, imagine if Zootopia was set in the 1950s America, but it's a crime noir in the sense of stuff like, Maltese Falcon, like LA Confidential, like what's that one I was thinking about? Chinatown with Jack Nicholson. It's absolutely amazing. Now, I did find out that Warnito actually was a character designer and animator for Disney's Tarzan when it came out in the 90s. So you can definitely see the very Disney-esque influence in the characters. Now, keep in mind, this isn't just ink. This is ink with water. It's either gouache or watercolor. I think it's gouache. But it's all traditional, and it's absolutely fantastic. And one of the interesting things about Black Sad, which before I say anything else, this is also not a comic for little kids. I am so sorry for anyone who's under 18 that is watching this, but I do need to specify Black Sad is not for little kids. There is some language, there is some sex, so I do want to put that out there before anyone else decides they're going to buy this for little Timmy and little Sally. But they basically lean into the whole crime noir thing with these anthropomorphic characters. And what's really interesting is the fact of the character Black Sad. He's a black cat. He likes being alone. He feels like luck is just never with him. And a lot of the bad guys are usually cold-blooded, and so they tend to be drawn as reptiles. The police are either like German shepherds or Dobermans or giant oxes or bison. Some of the same stuff that you saw in Zootopia. Basically, you see like almost kind of like an interesting parallel. And the thing is that they're the kind of personality you would get from that kind of animal reflects into their job description, reflects into how they act. Now, the other interesting thing is that when you look at the females, they basically look like females from like the Goofy movie, but the males are obviously a lot more animalistic looking. And the theory is, I haven't seen whether or not if it's been I guess 100% certified that this is it. But the theory is that the reason why the males look more animalistic than the females is because they are more prone to tap into, I guess, them being not really so much aggressive, but just more so in the tendency of that animal, basically. And you do kind of see that in the stories as it goes on. But here's another panel that I want to show you. I hate the fact that it's this small, but keep in mind, like I said before, this is all traditional. It is penciled, it is painted, it is inked traditionally. The only thing that is digital is the word bubbles, or the text within the word bubbles, I should say. This is mind-blowing. By the way, this is a page from the second volume, A Silent Hell, which takes place in New Orleans, I believe. But this is it's just absolutely mind-blowing. Now, one of the things that I've found really interesting with French comics, especially with Black Sad, is that they complete the stuff as just, that is the story, here it is. And people buy it, and they love it. And this is something that I feel like is, and I hate going off in this tangent, but I feel like it's something that is slightly missing in American comics. And it's something that I feel like very, very, very few people are actually tapping into it. First one that comes to mind is Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, who do a lot of crime noir stuff. They have found their niche, their stride, and so far they've been selling it like crazy. Also, their stuff is definitely meant for older readers, but in the same sense that the Ed Brubaker crime comics are, one and done graphic novel series, the Black Sad series is very much in the same aspect, just done differently. It's just absolutely beautiful stuff. And hello, Josh. I cannot state how much I just recommend Black Sad for you older readers out there. It is through Dark Horse Comics as far as the English translations of it. So I definitely recommend it. And if you are a Disney fan and you're wanting something that is kind of akin to Zootopia, but definitely in the 1950s crime noir level of stuff, and it's done and drawn by a Disney artist, you're going to love Black Sad. I cannot speak any more highly of it, and that is why it's in my number 2 spot right now. And here we are with the number 1 spot. I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. For anyone that actually knows me, knows that Dana Warren Johnson is probably one of my favorite new and upcoming artists, and has been since 2017. I have been preaching the gospel of Dana Warren Johnson since 2017 when I first read Extremity. I believe that's when it came out. Him and James Herron and a few other guys that are just in that same bubble of artwork is just, it's so good. It is so damn good. Which is why Transformers is my number 1 comic of 2023. I never thought that I would say that at all, especially with it being a franchise comic of sorts. But when it was announced that 2023, that Skybound, which is a sub-company of Image, was buying out Transformers and G.I. Joe from IDW, which also comes with the strings attached of Hasbro also being involved in it, that they put out basically this Energon universe worth of storylines. So if you have Red Void Rivals, I want to say 1 issue behind in reading it, but starts off with Void Rivals, it goes into Transformers, and of course the next 2 comics that are coming out are Duke and Cobra Commander. But Transformers number 1, oh my god, it is no holes barred. It is pedal to the metal. I know it's the worst pun I could possibly think of, but it is that, and then some. And one of the things that I've absolutely loved about Dana Warren Johnson is that he and I are kind of in the same wavelength in the fact of, like, it's very possible for a person that is working in American comics to be just as equally influenced in stuff that isn't from the US as much as they are from the US. And it's just, it shows. It shows. And it's great. And I wanted to show a page from issue 2. And if you know what it is the deer scene from issue 2. For those of you who don't know, I'm sorry, I am going to have to spoil this, but in the page beforehand, Optimus Prime accidentally steps on a deer. And you see this level of remorse, and Spike, the human that just happens to find Optimus Prime and all the Autobots. He's basically explaining, just like, hey, it's okay, don't freak out, sort of thing. And Optimus just like, I had no idea the humans were so fragile. This page and the next page after it, next 2 pages after, I should say, one of the things that Daniel Warren Johnson excels at isn't just the action. He is bonkers when it comes to the action and the multi-point perspective stuff. And he makes it hyperkinetic, and it's awesome. But the other thing that he excels at is just the everyday conversations with people. He is able to tap into the right emotion. And now the other thing that I also want to point out is that the vast majority of stuff that Johnson has put out to date, he is also the writer. And this is something that I have talked about at length with my friend Reed Beeman. And that is that if there was ever a boat to jump in fully, push in all my chips in the poker table, it is that artists need to start also being writers. We need to start seeing more books, and not to discredit, writers that just happen to hire artists. There are good ones out there, but there's not enough comic artists in the industry, at least in the US, that are also as equally good writers. And Daniel Warren Johnson is both. Cannot state that anymore. And of course, with him also being a pro wrestling fan, you also get scenes like Optimus Prime suplexing Starscream. But it's just, this is also on par for a guy who literally, the comic right before was literally a 6-issue comic about pro wrestling, which won an Eisner. Of all things to win an Eisner this year, a pro wrestling comic. Who would have thunk it? Obviously, Daniel Warren Johnson did. Here's another page of just the hyperkinetic feel of just what he's able to do. Now, keep in mind, the lettering in all of this is done traditionally, with the exception of the word bubble. But all the lettering from the sound effects and all that stuff, that is done traditionally. If you ever want to see him do this stuff live, he does have his own YouTube page on, obviously, YouTube. But just type in Daniel Warren Johnson. One of the first things that will pop up is his page. And he does this thing called Friday with D-Dubs. Every Friday nights, he tries to go live at least for about an hour. And if he's not able to work on a specific page of his work because of spoilers, he will do anything and everything to try to fill in that time period, whether it's a commission piece that he's doing, whether it's stuff in his sketchbook that he wants to show off. It's great stuff. And he also recently did a tutorial video regarding perspective. So for any of you out there who like drawing, who want to know a little bit more about perspective, I highly recommend finding that video. I want to say it came out last week, if not the week before. But there you have it. My pick, the #1 comic of 2023 is Transformers. Right now it is up to issue 3. Cannot wait for issue 4 for it to come out. And one of the best things that I've heard so far is that it sounds like Daniel is going to be in it for as long as he can take it. The story, that is. Now, I did hear that there are going to be a couple of issues where there's going to be a different artist on the interiors, but he is still writing the script, and then he will be back into doing both writing and drawing after a couple of issue break. And part of that is just because of he is one of the most in-demand artists right now in the industry, not just with the variant covers, but just also interior stuff as well. And of course, he has been talking about for at least the last year and a half about this sci-fi comic that he is wanting to put out. If I had to guess, probably through Image, if not through Kickstarter, but definitely through Image. It would be hard for me to believe that any company would not want to put it out. But there you have it. So starting from 10, the number 10 spot was Hunger in the Dusk. The number 9 spot goes to Lone Wolf and Cub, the omnibus. Number 8 spot goes to the new Conan the Barbarian. The number 7 spot goes to Tom King's run of Wonder Woman. The number 6 spot goes to Ultimate Invasion, which, by the way, I probably did not specify. If I did, I forgot. But Ultimate Invasion is 4 issues long. So the last issue is going to be the longest issue of the 4. So if you're wondering why is it priced at $8.99, now you know. The number 5 spot is the Stormwatch Omnibus. The Warren Ellis run, by the way. The number 4 spot goes to Tom Strong Compendium. Number 3 spot goes to The Big Game. Number 2 spot is Black Sad. And last but not least, definitely not least, is Transformers at the number 1 spot. For those of you who have been coming in and out, I've been seeing that the viewership keeps going up and down a lot. I do want to just go ahead and say, if you just happen to like this, please like it. Like and subscribe, comment, share, click that little bell notification. And if you want to know where you can find me on social media, just go through my link tree at tpriceartworks.com. And now we're going to enter the second half of this video. And this is something that I kind of wanted to talk about. There's been a lot of buzz and talk about some stuff that has been popping up within the industry and also just comic shops in general. If you excuse me for 1 second, I'm going to get a swig. My mouth be dry. This is probably the most I've talked all day. One of the things that was brought up probably about 2 weeks ago was the video that's been circulating. It was actually a 2.5 minute video out of a much longer video. But there's a LCS owner. I forgot the name of the guy in the shop, but he has been the owner of this place out in, I believe it's New York or New Jersey, for 30 years. So he has seen the highs and lows of the industry within that time period. And one of the things that he had talked about was the fact of what he feels like there is only one reason why Big Two comics are not selling the way that they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even up to 30 years ago. And some of it is just the fact of people are leaning towards independence. People are leaning towards manga. People are leaning towards other things than Big Two. And part of it is because the shift with the Big Two comics is that there aren't any long-term creative teams as of right now. And this is something that's been talked about for several years with a lot of creative people. And that is something that is sorely missed. You don't have a lot of people that are signed up to do something longer than 2 years. You'd be lucky to find someone that actually sticks with a particular title for even 5 years. And if we're being perfectly honest, I really don't know who has been within the last 5 to 10 years, who has been writing a particular title of a comic within the Big Two. Let's just keep it in that margin. Within the Big Two. I just do not know who has been writing a particular singular comic title for the longest. And also them having the same artist within that same time period as well. And so you will always hear someone try to chime in with really false information saying, oh, well, the comic industry is dying. Comic books are dying. There is an actual chart that does exist in terms of the sales of comic books. And within the last 2 years, we are entering the several billion mark of comic books. Gross capital of money of comic books being sold. We are in the several billion mark, which is also If I remember correctly, 1.5 to 1.6 billion more than 2020. And we didn't actually hit the 1 billion mark until about maybe 2017. So it's obviously going up. It is drastically going up. So comic books are still selling. Graphic novels are still selling. But the thing is that out of that, when you're looking further into it, when it comes to graphic novels, manga, individual issues of comics, right now, manga and graphic novels are the top sellers. And part of that is just because of the fact of it's not that people don't want the individual issues, but it does lead into a couple different problems. When you've got younger readers who don't know where to start, you can point them to a number one. But the big problem right now within the big two is that they keep restarting series. So you've got so many number ones, you don't know which one to start them off with. Whereas if you had picked up the first volume of a graphic novel or trade paperback, if you will, you can point them to that direction, they can pick it up and they can read it. And it has the rereadability of it all. You can stick it in a bookcase easier, so on and so forth. There's a lot of different avenues and a lot of nitpicking when we can do about it. But when it boils down to it, it's younger readers are not able to pick out that individual issue because they're going to be going after that first volume of a graphic novel or a trade collection. It's just easier. Some people have looked at LCSs as a museum for the middle-aged. I won't disagree, considering that you've got people that have been into comics for the last 30, 40 years of their life. And most of them now are middle-aged. But the direction of everything is also different. Because with people my generation and much older, people that are the same age and generation of, say, Josh or Alan, we grew up with, getting our comics from the newsstands, in the grocery stores. We went into comic shops to buy them straight off the wall. And this is pre-internet, and even with the beginnings of the internet age, I mean, you couldn't read this stuff online. Even if you could download the first page of something, it took forever. So we grew up in an era where we had to physically go into stores and do it, and which is why some people have looked at the brick and mortar LCS as the museum for the middle-aged person. And that has become a hard thing in order to get the younger generations to want to go into an LCS, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to walk into a bookstore, or they're going to buy it off of Amazon, or they're going to download it off of an app, whichever app service that they happen to be using, because obviously Kindle and Comixology are going to be bye-bye. But it's just like, how do you get the younger generation to want to go and get this? So we've got creative teams and story arcs that are in these like mini series little chunks, and you keep restarting it with issue 1 over and over and over again, regardless what the legacy number is. You just keep restarting it. Yeah, you're going to lose readership. Yeah, you're going to lose a lot of momentum, especially when you notice that gap of quality. Sure, you got the quantity of it, but the quality is the thing that matters most. And this is why you start seeing that shift of people going towards the independent comics, because while they are, singular storylines, they do have a start and an end, and you don't feel like you're missing out on something. And you're not having to be forced to feel like there is this major cataclysmic event, and it just kind of swings and misses every single time that you try to push it every 6 to 8 months. It's just easier to pick up in independent. It just is. Funny enough, in Wizard Magazine number 61, which came out in September 1996, there is a letter to the editor, or editor writing, I should say, I forgot who the editor was, but he actually did mention that one of the things that was mentioned several times in the letters to the editors within the last year or in that year, they wanted to see more independence being shown in Wizard Magazine. They wanted to have more manga to be shown in Wizard Magazine, and they wanted more toys to be shown in Wizard Magazine. This is 1996. And I think it's interesting that we're starting to see that mirror again now in 2023. A good, 27 years later? If my math is correct. It's probably not correct. It's been a long day. So I would say that there is a push for more independence that are happening. There is definitely a push for more graphic novels and manga happening. And I would also venture to say, not really so much the toy aspect of it all, but there is the collectability aspect that a lot of people have been pushing too. So all that being said, this has definitely been a hot topic that's been talked about. You got people that come out of the woodwork that just want to cause a lot of strife and issues, and there have definitely been some, I guess, shattering of the wills, if you will. Not just with longtime readers or newer readers, but even within the creatives in the industry. You know, I'm talking about professionals that have been in the industry for the last 25, 30 years. And I hate the fact that it's the bad apples that just want to put in their 2 cents while screaming into the void that has to create situations like this. So all that being said, with the new year coming up in 2024, don't be that bad apple. Be better. Strive to be better. Now, for something a little bit more positive to end off this particular episode, because this is the last episode of the year, I wanted to talk about a couple of the different things that I've got planned for the future. So if you just happen to have not seen this part yet, hopefully you'll be able to, I guess, scroll forward to this part. So the hour 12 mark. Next year, there's a couple different things that I have planned out. I know for a fact that one of the first conventions for the year is going to be the Huntsville Comic and Pop Expo in April. Super happy. I have not heard back from another convention. I will not say what they are, but they are supposed to be having their con in late February, early March. But I don't want to say who it is because I don't want to jinx it. So until I hear back, I know nothing. But I know for a fact that one of the very first ones of the year is definitely going to be the Huntsville Comic and Pop Expo, which the lineup for it this year is fantastic. And it was just announced that Joe Rubenstein is going to be there. If you don't know who he is, he inked so many groundbreaking series during the 80s and the 90s. I know he did some stuff for Frank Miller. I know he's done some stuff. I don't think he worked with Byrne and Claremont. I could be mistaken about that, so don't quote me on that. But definitely check him out for sure. But one of the things that I have noticed this year with some of the stuff that I have tried to learn with new techniques like ink wash. It was a happy accident during October, and now it's something that I kind of want to push into a little bit more. I definitely want to try to get into watercolor, but it'll be at my own pace and time and leisure, not so much something that I'm going to do for the long run. But it's definitely something that I would love to look at more. But because so many people have talked about the original stuff that I did during October, during Requiem and Reverie, which I hate the fact that I lost all of those pages during that laptop update. Still pains me. But some of the stuff that I have uploaded onto Patreon, some of the stuff that I have been keeping quiet until I finally showed you guys as far as some of the pitch work that I've done this year. I'm definitely pushing into doing a lot more original arts for next year. Not saying that I won't ever do fan art ever again. I'm still going to do that because people are obviously still going to ask it. So I'm still going to do it. Which leads into two different directions. The first one is that my hope and goal for 2024 is that there will be a volume 2 of Between the Lines. So sketchbook number 2, hopefully 2024. I still have, I want to say about 30 copies left of issue of the first volume of my sketchbook. So if you don't have that and you want to get it, the two places you can get it from me is either you message me on social media, or you can go to Haven Comics and you can pick up a physical copy there. But the other thing is that with the original art is that I am hoping to put out a standalone comic ashcan of sorts. I have talked about this a little bit on my Patreon in a newsletter I did back in October. It's something that has kind of been on my heart for the last couple of months, and it's definitely something that I am working through the concept designs of some stuff. Maybe this will be the thing that I will do. I could go back and do the Requiem and Reverie as a standalone thing, but that would be way too long and daunting of a process. I feel like something a little bit shorter, a little bit easier to digest for all ages would probably be the ticket to go. Unlike this year, next year, definitely pushing to do more convention stuff like it did in 2022. I hate the fact that I missed out on 3 different conventions this year due to other stuff that shall not be named. Other people just kind of throwing the wrench in the works, or I should say other person, but definitely trying to do more conventions and events for next year. Lines on a Page. Was definitely hoping to do a few more episodes, at least reach up to episode 50 this year. It did not happen, but I am kind of glad that we are only 5 away. So I consider that a win of sorts. However, the frequency of Lines on the Page for next year will not be, probably won't be every Sunday. It will probably be more of an every other Sunday kind of situation. And the reason I'm stating that is that if things happen to go to motion, I should say, just trying to figure out the right phrase of words. If Lilywood does end up getting picked up, that's probably going to be my focus for probably the next 2 or 3 months, starting next year. So, wanted to go ahead and just state that 2024 starts. There will probably be, episode every other Sunday instead of every Sunday, which allows me to breathe. It allows me to do or focus on everything that I need to do with that. Probably more than likely episodes regarding my actually doing my work live. I will try to make sure that it's not a spoiler page if it does end up getting picked up. There are a couple of people that I've contacted who everything from writers and artists. There are a couple of people who I haven't contacted yet that I do want to get onto the show as guests. And the first one hopefully will be in January. He has been on the Haven YouTube page before, a couple of years ago. So I'm hoping that his return will happen in January 2024. So fingers crossed on that. But definitely want to do some different things, interesting things, some more interviews, talking with other creatives and their processes in terms of not just the art aspect, but also even concept design or even writers to figure out how they plot out an entire script. And for anyone who wants to get into the realm of writing comics, how they can approach it. So that's definitely going to be something that you guys would probably be interested to see. And, writing your technically lines on a page, The other thing for next year is the direction of my art. So for the last 3 years, I've really been pushing into the clean line work of guys like Terry Dawson, Adam Hughes, Frank Cho, and Stuart Immonen. And I've definitely loved it, but I believe that it has taken its course, and I'm trying to find that merging point between those guys and my anime and manga influences. So guys like Ryuichi Ikigami, Shiro Masamune, Kentaro Miura. And I'm trying to find that bridge point to where it can work. I know it can work. I have seen specific artists that do have that bridging point between the two. Matter of fact, if we're going to be looking at this in terms of my list of people, I mean, aside from the obvious, which is Kaseki Kojima, who is obviously a manga artist, but like you do have a little bit of an anime influence in Chris Wildgoose's stuff. He might disagree, he might agree, I don't know, but you could definitely see a little bit of that in there. There is a little bit of a anime influence in Tom Rainey's work, definitely in Pepe Larraz with his work, even though I would also argue that Pepe Larraz is probably more so influenced by Stuart Immonen than anything else. But the other person that would say, and who would definitely agree, that anime and manga has influenced a lot of its art style is Daniel Warren Johnson. You can see that in the way that he does his panel work, especially in action scenes. He does not shy away from the backgrounds, the multi-point perspective, the tech. So I'm definitely going to be picking and choosing things that I absolutely like about some of my favorite Western artists, which this year Travis Charest has definitely been a good influence in that. So there's definitely going to be a little bit of that in there, and then also picking the stuff that I love about some of my favorite artists in manga. So, pick these things out, and I wouldn't necessarily say create a soup out of it per se, but I'm kind of looking at this as like being a chef in the kitchen. Can I make a 3 or 5 course meal? If I can, who are going to be my ingredients? And that's kind of where I'm looking at it. So if you do happen to see a shift in my artwork with next year and the years leading, it is literally just me trying to experiment and pick out some stuff here and there that I want to do. And it's definitely going to be something that is going to take time. It won't happen overnight. I've got no illusions that it's going to happen overnight. But it's definitely something interesting that I'm going to be working on for the near foreseeable future. And that's basically all that I've got. I just want to thank every single person that has obviously given a like and a heart react. I've seen a couple of people have shared and also have been watching this from the beginning. So thank you guys so much. And I want to wish you all a very safe, fun, happy, and festive holiday season, as it were, because, some people are already technically finishing Hanukkah, but there's also some that are going to be celebrating Kwanzaa and Christmas, Yule, any other winter solstice holidays that I've forgotten. Let's umbrella it. Just a good happy holidays. It's good for that. And of course, the obvious New Year and Chinese New Year that will be happening within the next couple of weeks as well. So, do you want to say that? Oh, before I forget, tomorrow I will be posting at 12 p.m. CST. And I'm going to put that in the comments. Give me one quick moment. All right. Need to post this into the chats because why not? So I am opening up commissions tomorrow, which with this being broadcasted, it is 17th. Tomorrow will be the 18th. So if you happen to be watching this a couple of days later or a month later, now you know to get a little bit of a time period, as it were. But tomorrow, Monday, the 18th of December 2023 at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, I am going to be reopening my commissions. I do want to let you guys know that if you have any illusions into thinking that, oh, I can get something and it'll be shipped before Christmas, that is a hard no. And the reason I'm going to be saying that is because the holiday season is really, really bad. I have been trying to ship something out to Damon for like the last week, and I haven't been able to because the lines have been crazy. Everyone is just trying to ship everything out, and the last thing I want is to ship out original artwork commissions that you guys have paid for and it get lost into the nether realm. So all of the commission work that you guys will be wanting to sign up for, I won't be shipping that stuff out until after New Year's. So just wanted to let you guys know this. That is really my only disclaimer that I have, just because this is everyone's hard-earned money. They want to know that it's well spent and they're getting their products in a safe and timely manner. So that being said, I do want to disclose that just straight off the bat. Getting hoarse. All right. Love sinuses stuff. All right. So there you have it. I will be opening up commissions tomorrow. Super thrilled. Definitely thrilled to be opening up commissions again. It's been a little while, and so definitely wanted to get that out there. Which I didn't really open up commissions during Black Friday. It was just a portfolio sell of sorts, but I definitely want to get that out there. Going to try to make some deals happen within that, so you guys just aren't getting, one thing or just the couple of things that you guys have been ordering. We'll try to make them into what's the terminology? Kind of like a gift bag of sorts. All right. That being said, we're going to finally end this off with the ending show housekeepings. Haven Comics, located at 1871 Slaughter Road, Suite F in Madison, Alabama. If you're wondering about our store hours come the Christmas holidays, we will be open for a couple of hours on Christmas Eve, which falls on a Sunday. However, the store will be closed on Christmas morning and the day after. And that's just because we are always closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. So now you know. Please remember to like and subscribe. If you like the show, any other show that we do, please remember to like, subscribe. Tell about this show or any other shows that we happen to do, such as on Thursday nights, we have Shop Talk with Josh and Alan, where they talk about their picks of the week, stuff that's happening within the comic book industry, even interviews with creatives that are still a part of the industry or new creatives that are cutting their teeth, as it were, and putting out some really great stuff. And yeah, you don't want to miss out. You don't. Because every Friday I get quizzed by Alan if I have watched the previous night episode before. And I hate the fact that I miss out on it sometimes. But c'est la vie. If you want to figure out where you can find me on social media, please remember to like and follow through my link tree, or you can just type in at tpriceartworks, this part right here, into the search bar of your social media preference of choice. 9 times out of 10, you will find me there. And as it were, like I said, I hope you guys have a safe, fun, and festive holiday season. Looks like I got one more comment. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, James. All right. That's it. That's all I got. That's all I got for this year. That's it. I think. Yeah, that's it. Bye.